welcome back to Off-Grid Working Holiday. I'm your host, Jerry. Today I'm going to give you some basic lessons on splitting firewood, but before we get to that, let's have a quick discussion about firewood itself. Okay, you want to live off-grid? Well, you're going to have to heat your house in the winter, otherwise you're going to be cold. So you're going to have to deal with firewood. Most people, I think, are defeated in the off-grid world by firewood itself. They don't do it efficiently, and it turns into a back-breaking, tedious chore. They don't like it, they can't do it, they get too old, they hurt their back, they move. That's it. It's all over. So this woodshed behind me here, that holds about probably 9 cords of firewood. A cord is enough firewood to occupy space 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet. So about three of those a year. Most people would burn that in a season. Now, to do your firewood efficiently, you want to handle it as few times as possible. 3 cords of firewood weighs approximately 10,000 pounds. So every time you handle that firewood, you're handling 10,000 pounds of firewood. That is no easy task. You want to do that as few times as possible. You do it 8 times, well, that's 80,000 pounds of firewood every season that you're going to have to deal with. That's a lot of weight. If you're old and with a bad back, well, then it becomes a problem. So you want to do it as efficiently as possible. The way I do it is I chainsaw down the tree, I chainsaw the tree up into rounds, and then I split it right there. That way I'm not handling big heavy rounds, just small pieces of firewood. Even an old guy like me can do that all day long. So far at that point I haven't really lifted the firewood or handled it at all. But I will have to handle it to get it into the back of the pickup truck to transport it here to the woodshed. That is one handling. The next time I handle it, I'll have to unload the pickup truck and stack it into the woodshed. That is the second time I've handled it. The third time, I'm going to have to get it out of the woodshed and put it into a wheelbarrow, wheel it over to my staging area for my wood stove, and unload it into the staging area. That's 2 more times. So far I've handled it 4 times. Then from there, I feed it directly into the wood stove. So I'm handling my firewood a maximum of 5 times. That means I'm going to have to handle 50,000 pounds of wood per season. You do it efficiently. I've seen people move it up to 10 times. So instead of 50,000 pounds, you're going to have to handle 100,000 pounds every season. So remember, when it comes to firewood, handling it the least amount of times is essential. So let's go and we'll split some firewood. Hello again, this is Jerry here, your host once again. And I'm going to give you some beginner lessons for splitting firewood. First thing you got to know is, you'll notice that this axe is very, very dull. If you use a razor sharp axe, it doesn't really split any better because you're not really cutting the wood, you're splitting the wood. And every once in a while it goes through the wood just a little bit more easy than expected and you hit your foot. A dull axe, yeah, okay, you're maybe going to get a bruise on your foot, but a razor sharp axe is going to cut through your boot, through your sock, through your flesh, and bury itself right into the bone of your foot. So I don't recommend using a razor sharp axe. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is read the wood. That means taking a good look at it. And this wood here, first of all, you look around the outside here, just look see if there's any branches sticking out. I don't see any on this one. But there is this sort of a blemish right here. So we're going to divide this up like a pie. So how would you cut up a pie? From the center to the outside into pieces of firewood like this. Now this area here, I'm going to sort of avoid chopping here. because of this irregularity there. So I'm going to split here and over here, but I'm not going to split over there. And this is kind of a no-no, splitting across here like this. We don't want to do that. Always like a pie, from the outside to the center, which would be here. So, get your axe. Now, you want to be relatively accurate here. So spread your feet off out like this so you don't hit your feet. And do we want to chop over here, in the middle, or over here? Well, if you chop here and your axe gets stuck, you can't really put your foot on there to get it out. But if you chop here and your axe does get stuck, you can always put your foot on here and kind of lift the axe out. So generally with beginners, I recommend that you get 5 chops. If it doesn't look promising after 5 chops, move on to the next round. Just abandon it. So here we go. Chop number 1. I'm going to chop right here. That's my first chop. I'm going to aim for this blue line right here. So here we go. Chop number 1. This hand is always sort of right here at the end, and this hand can sort of fluctuate and kind of move around as needed. So here we go. And I'm going to go for accuracy, not to try to chop really hard. So here we got chop number 1. I'm going to go up, I'm going to hesitate, I'm going to aim, and I kind of missed that blue line there. So my accuracy was a bit off. Chop number 2, you want to chop exactly in the same spot. So I'm going to go chop number 2 in that crack. Now it's cracking over here, so it does look promising. So if necessary, I can exceed my 5 chop maximum. So chop number 2, I'm going to go right here. You notice that I'm not chopping very hard. Chop number 3, I'm just going for accuracy, not strength and hardness. Chop number 3. Okay, I'm going to chop over here. Oh, it's a little bit harder there because we're getting into this blemish over here. So, there we go. And chop number 4 right here. There it is. Alright, this is a pine tree that I cut down a few days ago and sliced up into the rounds, as this piece is called here. It's heavy, so I don't want to move this. So far I haven't handled this at all. All I did was stand it up. So, first of all, we're going to examine the wood and kind of read the wood. So what I'm looking for is knots sticking out. Here's one sticking out here, and there's another one sticking out there. Another one sticking out there. So the knots come from the center of the tree, which is here, and this one over here will occupy this area here. This one will occupy here, and there's one here, and there is one here. So these are the locations that we don't want to chop in. We can chop anywhere else in between here, but we want to avoid chopping these areas. So the first thing you want to do is try to divide this up like a pie. How would you divide up a pie? From the center, you would split it up into the pie-shaped pieces, kind of a triangular, always passing through the center of the tree. This is, you can see the round rings. There is the center here. So everything radiates out from here. Alright, so over here, this line here, there's no knots there. It's nice, clean, clear wood here. So the chances are, if I chop right here, hopefully I can split it right in half. I'm going to avoid chopping where these blue lines are here because of the knot here. And the worst thing you can do is try to chop across these knots, because they do come from the outside all the way to the center. So if I was to chop here, well, that's almost impossible. So I'm going to chop right here like this. Now, the next thing is, should I chop here, in the center, or over here? If I do chop here and my axe gets stuck, I can put my foot on there and kind of get that axe out. But if I chop over here and it's stuck, well, I got nothing to put my foot on. It's kind of hard to get out. So chop number one is I'm going to chop right here. Hopefully it'll land right on that blue line there, and it's all down to accuracy. The only way to get good accuracy is to chop about 1,000 times, and then accuracy will come. So I'm going to spread my feet. I'm going to raise up my axe. I'm going to aim very carefully, and I'm going to bring down my axe. Now, if that's stuck in there and I can't get it out, here is a very simple trick to get that axe out. Instead of getting frustrated, I get a small stick, I hit it like this, comes right out. So I did miss that blue line by about 1/4 of an inch. So chop number two, here we go. I'm going to try to chop again, this time exactly in the same crack as I chopped the first time. So here we go. I'm going to aim carefully, and there we go, stuck again. I'll get the stick, get it out, and it looks like I missed it by about another 1/4 of an inch. Alright, it did have a little crack appearing there, so this time I'm going to chop over here, and try to break it in half. So here we go. Okay, you can see kind of a fairly good crack developing there now. So it is starting to look quite promising. I think with one more good blow it should come in half. There it is. So we got it in half. Now instead of prying that completely apart so both pieces fall down, I'm going to leave it joined together for now. And I'm going to, these pieces here, the halves, they're still too big to put into a wood stove. But if I chop it in half, I'm not going to chop here, I'm not going to chop here because of the knots, but I will chop in between those two knots right here. There it is. And this one half over here, once again, still too big to put in a wood stove. But I do have two knots and there's something right here, so I'm going to have to avoid this whole area. So as far as cutting it directly in half, that is not the answer this time. So I'm going to trim a little bit off here, and then I'm going to trim a little on this side, making this piece is still okay to put in a wood stove. That's small enough. Now this little branch here, it's kind of nice to break that off to ease the stacking. So instead of this big round, which is very heavy, guy could hurt his back, nice small little piece here, I could handle those all day and not hurt my back. So try not to handle the big rounds if you can help it. Okay, so here we have another round. Okay, here we have another round of pine. So let's read the wood first. We got a big knot sticking here. This knot is going to occupy, here's the center of the tree right here. So this knot is going to occupy this area here. So no cutting in there. Also, we have a big knot over here. No chopping over here. And we do have a knot down here. So this whole area, and we got some sort of a little blemish here. So this whole area here is going to be hard chopping in there, which leads us to either chop over here, try to chop it in half, kind of like this. So here we go, chop number one. Remember, my recommendation is to get 5 chops. If it doesn't look promising, well, move on to the next round. Just abandon it. More than 5, you could be chopping 30, 40 times. May never break in half. So here we go. I'm going to chop right here first. That way, if I get stuck in there, I can put my foot on here and get that axe out. So here we go, chop number one. Okay, you can see kind of a little crack developing there. So I'm going to try to exploit that weakness. Once again, your axe, if it's stuck in there, you get a little thing, comes right out. So I did see kind of a crack developing here, so I'm going to maybe chop over here, see if I can exploit that crack. There it is, crack is opening up even more. Now it does look promising at this point, so I could exceed the 5 chop maximum now that it is looking promising. Get the axe out, and this time I think if I chop accurately right in this crack, it will break in half. Oh, there it is. So I could break it apart so it falls completely apart, falls down. I'd have to stand it back up again. But now these pieces are just too big to fit in a wood stove. The door just isn't quite wide enough. So a good firewood chopper, he's going to chop off this knot here. Makes the wood easier to stack. So in order to get this to a smaller size, I'm going to try to chop it right here like this. There it is. Which leaves us this big half here, which is too big, too wide to fit that in a door. So I'm going to avoid this whole area here. So if I chop right here in between all the knots, there it is. Okay, I'm further up the tree here now. So this piece here, got this big branch sticking out there, so I'm going to chop that off and have a look at this piece of firewood. Now technically I could get this into the wood stove without splitting it, but it's just going to take a lot longer to dry. So if it is easy splitting wood, you should probably at least try to chop this in half. If it's not, well, then you just have to wait longer for it to dry and burn it as is. So I'm going to look for a half here. I'm going to try to cut it in half this way. Too many knots here, big knots over here. I'm going to avoid those knots, and I'm going to try to cut it in half like this. Here we go, chop number 1. There it is. So that is quite easy splitting wood. So that'll dry a lot faster, split in half, and that's really all you have to do. There's really no point in splitting that even smaller. Okay, this is a problem piece of firewood. I think that we're going to find that splitting this the traditional fashion, like a pie, from the center outwards, is not going to work. So let's try a couple chops and see what happens. You'll probably see the axe just bouncing out. So here we go, chop number 1. Oh, maybe not. I'll try it over here. I'll try one right here. See what I mean? Can't chop it. Axe just bounces out. So, in this case, this is an advanced technique. I'm going to try to chip off pieces off of sort of the knobs that stick out like this. So, first one I'll try to chop off is right here. There it is. And I'll continue on over here. And I will continue on over here. And over here. And now I'll try there. Oh, still see very tough splitting over there. Okay, I'll cut another one off of here. And another one here. Another one here. And hopefully, there it is. Okay, So first of all, we're going to read the wood. I don't see any knots or any blemishes on this. So this is actually the center of the tree right here. So we will try to divide this up like the pie. Okay, here's a couple of safety rules here. Now supposing I'm chopping this wood here and I hook on this branch here behind me as I'm chopping, and that throws my aim off and I miss this wood altogether. So here's the action that you don't want to do. Here's slow motion. I'm going to chop there and like, oh, I missed, and then down into your foot or your ankle. So in case that happens, always sort of go down with the axe like this, chopping into the ground. Once again, this is a very dull axe here, so it doesn't really matter if you hit the ground. So better hitting your ground than here. In fact, instead of sort of a rotation like this, as you can see, like this more. See, instead of this. So here we go with chop number 1. Right here. There it is. You can kind of see, if you can, there's a crack developing there, so it's already looking fairly promising. Once again, I chopped over on that far side there so I can put my foot on here and pull the axe out. So now I'm going to move over to here to exploit this crack that developed. Okay, it's really starting to crack open there now. So at this point, I could either just pry this off completely, but this piece here, it's kind of a little wide there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit that into the wood stove. Instead of breaking it completely off, I'm going to split it in half while it's still connected on there. Okay, now we got this big piece left here. So if I split this one in half, well, we're going to get 2 big pieces. That's just a little too big to fit in the wood stove. So I could go into quarters, 1, 2, 3, and get 4 pieces. I think I'll try that. So once again, here is my stance. This hand here can go in a little curve here. This one can kind of fluctuate around sort of as needed. Spreading my feet like this. I'm aiming. I'm not going to try to chop as hard as I can, but I'm going more for accuracy. I'm aiming for that blue line. I'm going to go up. I'm going to hesitate. I'm aiming, and I'm chopping. It doesn't really matter how hard you chop. Accuracy is more important. Here we go again. Feet spread apart. Aiming, hesitating, aiming, coming down. There it is. And one more right here. Feet spread apart. Aiming, hesitating, aiming, and there it is. Now this piece here, it's a little bit thrown together there. So there it is. Another piece of firewood split up. So that concludes our firewood lesson for today. If you want to come here and do some firewood splitting, watch this video, learn a few things, and when you get here, you'll be ahead of the game. So apply, and let's see here, chopping some firewood. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm Jerry, your host.